I was just trying to verify and make sure that, I'm pretty sure we're not in the executive session, but I didn't finish the call.
Let me finish this part right here.
Executive session still on.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
But I knew someone to request that. You need this?
Oh, yeah.
Hi, Jill. How are you? It's been resolved.
Yeah, I'm just stressed. I have a lot.
Okay, 7.
Yeah. I'm waiting for it.
I emailed it to her. She made me nervous.
I printed it.
Here, this can be attached with
So,
All right, you ready? Ready? Okay. All right, we'll call to order the regular meeting of the Lyons Board of Trustees for Monday, September 17th, 2018. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Sorry.
It's okay, sorry.
Mayor Sullivan?
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Drysdale?
Present.
Trustee Barrow?
present.
Trustee Barrow?
Present.
Trustee Law?
Present.
Trustee Miller? Present. Trustee Brown?
Sorry, I'm late.
All right, we do have a quorum. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And we'll take a brief reflective moment of silence, please. Okay. Thank you. Can I have a motion to amend tonight's agenda, please?
I move for approval of tonight's agenda without the appeal from Scott Young at his request.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Okay, our agenda is approved. All right, we will go ahead and turn it over to the sheriff. Thank you.
Good evening. So the first thing I have on the list is just a quick wrap-up of our last festival of the year, the Mountain Sun Festival. And due to scheduling conflicts, I wasn't up here either day, but I was in contact with Planet Bluegrass via phone and the supervisors for the SO that took those positions, and everything went fine. It was a little bit different crowd, kind of a group that wasn't quite, with our system, and so there was a couple bumps, but there was really no major issues, and their attendance was maybe just a little over half of what we saw at Folk Fest, so the impact of town, I think, was pretty minimal. Weekend traffic, I did hear some things about weekend traffic, just again, getting very busy through town. One of the issues I want to remind everybody is that we do have the fall colors going on up in the hills and the Estes Park stuff and Peak to Peak highway for all that, and it definitely impacts Lyons as people come through. Our mountain deputies are just getting killed up there with just volume of traffic, so to get up there they got to come through here most of the time. So I think again that's part of our volume issues that we see during town on the weekends. I want to say thanks to Kim and Marissa. Saturday night we ran into a little bit of a emergency situation where State Patrol had asked us to change our message board, which was a fatal accident on North Foothills or north US 36 up near Estes Park. So they had the road shut down for about 5 hours. So we couldn't get a hold of CDOT, so we were working through our dispatch to try to get a hold of CDOT to change their signs. But Kim and Marissa were able to talk Sean through changing our board so that people coming in town could at least have an alternate route and not make a bad situation worse. So I want to say kudos to that. I appreciate that. And then I am working on a formal staff report as requested a couple of board meetings ago. I've got some preliminary figures that I'll put together formally and get that to the board. But I can tell you right now that projected we'll fall about 7,000, maybe 6,000 under our budget for our overtime expenditures, and that's projecting out the rest of the year. Halloween parade, Christmas parade, the rest of our parks and traffic stuff. So as I kind of dissect some, I just got them today, so as I kind of dissect those and you know, counts of reports and tickets and whatnot, I'll get that into a formal document hopefully for the next board meeting. That's all I have.
All right, thanks. Any questions for Sergeant Christ?
Did you get any formal calls regarding noise?
I believe we got one.
Just one?
Just one.
And it was a little louder than previous. I just wondered if you had really any call that people were patient. So.
That was the only one we got, was a one formal noise complaint because there's a concert in town. Well, there's a concert in town. It might be just a little bit loud. I don't know. So if it was just a tad loud, I'm not sure what the actual, I would have to kind of look up and see if we have a municipal noise ordinance as far as decibel level.
We don't regarding decibels.
Okay, so we did the county. Yeah.
Was the, just for staff, was the call at a time, were they within their time limit for when they needed to cut off music?
I don't know what time the call came.
So I'll have to check into that because I don't know either.
They stopped between 10:30 and 11. So.
I think this was earlier in the day because I actually got the call from a day shift officer. So maybe towards the evening.
I just wondered if it was
possibly.
late in the evening.
No, I
don't
just
think
heard
it
some
was.
grumblings about it, but I think people around it would be amusing.
Okay.
Well, they actually had a show at 11 that started in the Wildflowers, so.
Oh,
I didn't
we
know.
couldn't hear that one.
Okay.
No, I think it was more throughout town. You could hear it through about 10:30 or a little after, when they must have quit using the main stage.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. We'll go to staff reports.
This evening, we have our updated financial report for the board and then some administrative updates. So Anna's here. Okay. Her voice break is in. You got the short one? Okay.
It's caught in the leg.
Okay. Thank you.
Good evening. So here's the financials for the month of August, and hopefully you get a chance to glance through all my little notes there on the overview. Just as you can see, all the funds, and we're having more expenditures for the month of August. And there was either we were very busy and there was a lot of things happening for the month of August. And we can go over some of them. You know, we had wrap up the audit, so there was 41,000 contributed to some of the expenditures in the general fund. And we have our donations that we do every year. So we have 500 to the Lyons Elementary School, 7,500 to Lease, and 4,500 to the Lyons Regional Library District. Some of that, also 4,000 went to the spring cleanup days, and 12,000 went for the traffic park patrol, and 19,300 went to road-based repair. And that was part of the general fund. And on the electric fund, there was $10,000 that went for the in-line electric. And it's all linemen of truck services, and there were several locations. And 164,000 went for me. There was 2 months, the overlap there in a month, so that's why they were so high in there. For the sanitation fund, there was $50,000 to Honeywell, and that was for the wastewater treatment plant. And there was 9,000 expenditures for the lift station service maintenance. And all the other ones, they were little amounts, but there was $10,000 in expenses for sludge disposal. So that was part of the sanitation. Under the parks, even the parks, I was surprised. Oh my gosh, do we have so much expenses this month too? So they were under the Parks and Rec. We have a lot of different repairs going on. Dog bags for the park, and we have some expenses for the debris at the Bone Park reconstruction project. So there was $8,000 there, and a lot of the classes. You know, we have the mountain bike and all those different tennis lessons and boot camp classes. So they went to for those instructors.
Mayor Person?
I do have a
I'm sorry.
question. First, I want to thank you for, I think we're getting better and better at the variance analysis element of the reports,
Yes.
which I like a lot. But I was wondering on the revenue side for the month itself,
Okay.
if there may
See if I
be
can go back.
a
There you go.
a timing question on the tax collection between July and August, because July was remarkably high, and
Yeah.
then this, and I was just wondering if that may be a timing question.
Well, yeah, that's what I was looking at. You're looking at the sales tax, is that what you were looking at?
Yeah.
And it might be not showing all of it, but I know that July, August, September, October is our peak months for sales tax.
Yeah, and that's why I was wondering, you know, that and it's complicated by some other things, but the
Yeah.
revenue is down in August.
It might be not reflecting all of it, but
Okay.
I can go back and check.
Well, yeah, so the question is really, so it's not like a data point on a trend,
Yeah.
but if it's a timing question,
Mhm.
you know, being attributed to a different month, then that's a lot less of a
Yes.
concern.
So I'll take a look at that. And then this second one is just the year-to-date revenues and expenditures, so both sides. This is for the whole year. Everybody is, the revenues are above the expenditures except for the water and sanitation. Seems that we always go back to those two funds.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
So we're at month 8, and we're about 300,000 over budget in general fund on the bottom line. Do you have a sense of where we might finish the year? Could you project at this stage? I mean, do you think, this month was kind of like, oh, okay, maybe we've been waiting and paying some expenses, so if we had, do you anticipate a couple more, another month like that? Or do you think this was maybe a blip because of some unusual expenses?
Very unusual, I think.
Okay.
From, if we compare this year to last year, it's kind of unusual. So, and maybe it was some of the invoices that they didn't get paid last month, they will get paid this month. So maybe if we look at September, it will be a better picture of it.
Thank you.
This one is just the third quarter, so, this is just a quarter of the whole year, the budget. And then this is what is showing as far as revenues. So they are all within, going to that direction for the budget.
So does this show 2 months of the 3 months?
July and August, yes.
Yeah, but the budget amount
It
is
will be only 3 months worth of the whole year.
Right, so I'm wondering if this slide is best presented once a quarter.
Okay, all right.
Just with all 3 months compared.
Yeah.
When it's a complete
It's
quarter.
more beneficial, yeah. So the same thing with this one, because this is just the same thing, the third quarter for. And here is just the third quarter for the general fund. So this is just what is revenues and expenditures, that's where we at for July and August, in this case, for the third quarter. So we're just gonna break even.
We do have to remember there, those will be in the Parks and Rec. The two events that are yet to come are pretty much just expenditures. Yeah.
And here with the electric, the same, you know, revenues are a lot higher than the expenditures on a quarterly basis. The water is kind of off because of all the loan payments that we have early in the year, and so they just kind of skew those expenditures at the beginning.
Excuse me, you mentioned the loan.
Yeah.
Could you remind us of how that was booked? We have an annual payment on the loan for the Eastern Corridor property, and that got booked back earlier this year? Is that what?
That's the one that is showing in January.
Okay. And that was split between the electric fund and then the water wastewater fund, or does it all go to the water wastewater?
No, the other loan that there is between water and sanitation. So I know this one is, this is the water, so there's half of it goes through the water fund and the other half goes through sanitation.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So that's why this one here just looked as high on the first quarter.
First quarter.
Yeah. And the stormwater just making money there by itself. Not so much going on.
Give it time.
Next year.
We have extra money there. And here Parks and Rec. So great revenues, you know, every single quarter, and even below, you know, expenditures for the quarter. So. Any questions?
I have a few in your financials that you sent us, not the slides, but are you going to go through those separately?
No, I emailed them earlier
Right.
today. Yeah.
If you have a question, you can ask about it.
Okay,
No?
all right. I have three questions about those, actually, no, fourth. I have three questions about those. One is, in your financials, you showed that interest income year-to-date was $26,800 compared to $12,000 in the budget, and we're earning interest at $4,000 per month. Is that because interest rates are up?
Are you looking at the general fund?
Yeah, it was on page 4 of your financials, and it showed the budget of $12,000 in interest income for the year. But to date, you're showing 26,800 received and 4,000 this month, and I was wondering if we are just earning more money on our deposits, or?
Probably it is, but probably we just use the same as last year's. It's kind of uncertain to know how much we're gonna receive in interest.
So because interest rates are up, we're earning more, and
Yes.
we have a kind of a surplus there. Okay.
Yeah, last year was really minimal on that
Yeah.
line item, and we carried it forward, so the
Okay.
change in.
So now that we can see a trend, then we can just, you know, estimate.
For
or
budget
budget a
purposes, and
higher-
also whether we have a surplus, that's good to
Yeah.
know.
Okay, I think you had one more question.
Well, yeah, I've had a couple more. Professional fees, it looks like the attorney's fees and the PC technician fees are probably headed for a little bit over budget, which is not surprising. But the auditor's fees that you mentioned earlier, we're showing 63,000 total out of 110, so that's like a almost $1,000 shortfall. And is that pretty much done for the year? We're not going to do more?
There's one payment on this
Done.
one, on this AP,
Oh, okay.
and then it will be done for the year.
Okay.
11,000.
And we have talked about using some of that remainder potentially for some of those traffic calming measures.
So there's some extra money there as well. Okay. Then you mentioned a few minutes ago about the contributions to the charitable groups in it.
The library.
Goodwill fund.
What charitable, what contribution cash-wise do they make to the library?
In the library.
So it was part of, I can answer that, so it's actually part of the
Goodwill
fund, which, and I think we can talk about that during budget season if that's
Okay.
something we want to reconsider.
All right.
Right now, we give funding to what is called the Goodwill Fund.
Right.
And the Human Services and Commission. takes applications and divvies it up, and the library was a recipient
For certain programs.
of a
Yeah.
program.
Okay, all right, got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem?
It's just actually a comment that the interest is affected by both the rate and the amount of funds that are
Invested.
invested at the point in time.
I had actually one more comment on that, and I think I'd asked this a while back. We have a large balance in the Bank of the West, and after the audit, when did we decide when to transfer that to the investment account and how much?
I mean, I don't know.
We, Anna and I monitor that, actually you monitor it almost every day. She brings it to me once a week. We try, because at any time we have at least $1 million out in contractors waiting for payment and waiting for that request for reimbursements, we've been letting it only get as low as about 1.7 million at any time. So right now, we don't have any plans to move any over because we're getting ready to start those 2 next big projects. If the board would like us to do that, we can. We can move money between Colorado Trust and Bank of the West, but our goal has been to feel most comfortable with it anywhere between 1.7 and 2.4 at the most, based on what accounts payable are out there.
That's general fund, so with the grant fund, is that because the grant fund has been lean?
Oh, no, we use the Bank of the West for all operating, including grants.
So that's including?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I just was curious on this balance. It seems like it's been really consistent.
It's been very
That's what-
consistent.
But I didn't know if we had a formal process for evaluating that periodically, just to decide if it's.
We based on that cash flow
Or
model
just on the
of-
cash flow?
Of
Okay.
when they think that payment will be due and when we expect reimbursements. But we try, it's for the last year anyway, we've kept it between 1.7 and 2.4 million.
Any other questions on the financials? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Staff updates, there's just a few. First of all, as Mayor Pro Tem mentioned, Scott Young did remove his request for an appeal. We were able to come to resolution on that together, so that was good for both parties, and that should not be coming back to us in the future. We have been just starting at the staff level, really starting to work on our budget prep, putting together our capital improvements, our staffing needs. We do have 2 projects that are underway grading right now. The Lyons Valley River Park, if you've been out there, they have started moving dirt, removing vegetation, and that will get replaced. There is a landscaping plan if anyone is concerned about the removal of vegetation out there. It will get removed. The grading is also occurring out at the Public Works facility. We are going to need a little more soil out there than we thought, because that one of the liners of the clay liner in one of the beds was deeper than planned, based on what they sampled in the first bed. And then also you'll notice at the recycling center, there's quite a bit of grading going on there, preparing for paving on the section of 2nd Avenue that's been gravel for 5 years, as well as the driveway into the new recycling center. So we do plan to move recycling. Maybe Toby's going to come.
I mean, I can answer the question, but we're ready to move as of next week, but with all the factors that need to happen, there's going to be a closing of that site to pave into the wastewater treatment plant on the 25th and 26th, and with the library not breaking ground until the 1st, we're proposing to move it on the 28th. Otherwise, we're going to have to close it as soon as we move it, and that seems a little ridiculous.
Also, thank you, Toby. Also, most of the last couple of weeks have been filled with 5-year flood anniversary events and get-togethers and meetings, so that's taken quite a bit of time. I did want to report to the board that we have received our sales tax information from Planet Bluegrass for all events held this year. So we'll now be looking at that and reviewing that information, but we did get it today, so give me a little time on that one. And we are scheduled for an urban renewal meeting next week, September 27th at 5:30 p.m.
Any questions?
Pardon? September 27th at 5:30 p.m. The agenda will go out tomorrow. The packet will go out tomorrow.
Trustee Farrell?
I have another question. Did we establish a date in October for going over the budget?
We have not. Have you done?
23rd or 24th is the best for everyone.
Okay. What's the delay in going ahead and confirming that?
Me sending an email to you.
I have to schedule something, and so I'm just.
Did you say the
trying to
24th was better for you?
Personally, yes.
Then let's just do it the 24th. That worked for everybody else too.
Thank you.
So, I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
October
URA is
Oh.
September 27th,
Yes.
all day?
No, no,
I mean, not all
5:30
day.
p.m.
5:30, okay.
And then budget.
That's not what I meant. I was like.
Budget
in my
workshop,
head
October
there.
24th.
9 to 3:30.
A point of information, I understand Steve Beck has been appointed by the fire.
Yes.
Hasn't been officially,
He'll be
not
appointed.
official
appointed.
yet, but at that
Yeah.
meeting, yes. Okay, any other questions for staff? All right, we will go ahead and move on to audience business.
Thank you.
This is the portion of the meeting where the audience can approach the board on topics that are not on tonight's agenda as a public hearing. We do not have any public hearings, although we do have a marijuana license to review. Does that have a public hearing with it? I didn't see one.
No, not for.
That's a new license. Okay. So there are no public hearings tonight. So if you want to come forward, you can give your name, address for the record, and each person will have 4 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Nicholas Angelo, 4089 Youth Highway. I'm so exhausted, I actually missed a moment of silence tonight. I attended the summit meeting, and I know you can't comment on it because there may be future quasi-judicial considerations that you need to abide by. But I thought it was a fantastic meeting. I was very pleased to find out that the 2 enterprise funds will be greatly enhanced by the development if it takes place. My only question is, in regard to the electric system, are we going to have to abide by the original LVP agreement and install the electric system as per that agreement? That's an enterprise fund that may not accrue the same positive impact. By the way, I concur with Mayor Pro Tem Drystad. I've looked at a lot of financial reports, and I felt that the last financial report was incredibly easy to understand, and I thought it was really well done, and I want to congratulate the finance director. One of the interesting items on there was the Dias expenditure for $10,000, and I don't blame you. The Dias is archaic. The only thing that I would recommend considering at budget time, because I got to listen to 2 meetings online, is to maybe perhaps get microphones that can turn off like they do at the Dr. Cog meetings, because what we hear online a lot, if any of you have ever listened to it, are a lot of coughs coming out of either the tables or the audience. And I think that would do a lot to remediate that problem. I think we have the ability to actually do that in town there are a lot of very sharp audio people and musically inclined people in this town, and I would like that to take place with a firm or an individual that lives in town. At the summit meeting, and it was great, I got to talk to former trustee Greenberg, and he explained a lot about the URA to me, and it was really quite refreshing. Other than that, everything seems to be going smoothly. Thank you very much.
Anyone else for audience business?
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
All right, I got aced out. Kurt Carlson, 968. Oh, sorry. Kurt Carlson, 968 Steamboat Valley Road. Former Parks and Rec Director back in the day. Sat through a lot of these meetings. When I learned about the $29.10 fee on the water, I was a little taken aback. I know water is a precious resource, but this country was founded on communities providing fresh, clean drinking water for people. I also realized that there are various tiers, and we pay the tier for pipe sales. But when you look at it from purely an economic standpoint, you can go up to Hygiene just up the road, and you can get it for $6 per 500 gallons. It almost appears as though the town doesn't want to sell water anymore. And I can tell you, from back in the 90s, I was privy to a lot of these meetings. Not a lot of the executive sessions, but I am privy to a lot of the decisions that the town made. And I know, well, what a pinch you guys are in for the water. But I think from an administrative standpoint and an economic standpoint, that does not make sense. What makes sense is to increase the per gallon sale a little bit, wherever it makes you guys comfortable. But when you have somebody like a commercial person like M&M Water, who used to be Pope back in the day, they'll pay the $29 and they'll haul several thousand gallons in a day. I may haul 1,000 gallons in a month. That's less than $20. So that represents, or about $20. That represents over 100% cost increase for me to get my water in Lyons. There's a couple other things that really need to be considered here, and I talked about how this is administered through the office. That's, you're putting the ladies up front in the middle of all this, and it doesn't have to be that way. It always used to be a little bit on the honor system, and I realize some people have kind of scarred that, and it's a shame. But that's what keeps Lyons real, and that's what brings me in here to talk to people and kind of have a little bit of a social interaction. I think if you use that same mentality on the electric car plug-ins, they would have to pay the base rate for electric to plug their car in. You don't want that. I don't want that. From an ecological standpoint, I don't want that. I think this was a knee-jerk reaction based on a lot of other things that were going on at the time that had a lot to do with utilities and maybe the past. I realize there may be some language that says that pipe water sales shall pay that base rate. The board here is empowered by the state statute to change that and to set those fees. So that doesn't really hold much water to me, pardon fun. But, and I want to preface this is a guy that came to work for Lyons in 1994 and had to move away because he couldn't afford to live here, okay? I scrimped and saved for 20 years to be able to move back here. And now I come here and it appears you guys don't want to sell water to me anymore. That's terrible. And I'm not the only person out there. I've talked to a lot of people, and when I went to the town hall the other day, somebody said, well, nobody's taking it to the town board. And I thought, well, that's unfortunate. I don't know if if it's because they live out of town or they're too busy. But I'd appreciate you guys taking a close look at that. I think from an economic standpoint, you've got to keep it somewhat close to what hygiene sells it for. I also would say that it is a pure advantage to have people like me in the valley with full cisterns at all times, especially if there's fire danger. And like I said, it's basically storing electrons in a battery as opposed to water in a tank. those electrons are going to drive off. And it's good for the environment, don't get me wrong. I don't want, but thank you very much. I really appreciate your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Kathleen Crane, 385 Vasquez Court. I'm also the Lyons District Library Board President. And we're here together. Sandy Banta, 44 JJ Kelly Road, and I'm a Lyons Regional Library District Board of Trustees member. First of all, I want to thank you again and again for your support and your prompt attention to all these pieces that have to fall in line now that we're really driving toward the groundbreaking. We are chasing down our own GMP at this stage, and we're still well over 100 and maybe closer to 200 grand short of our goal. So we're working very hard, looking at other contractors and things to get reductions where we can. We're still breaking ground. There's not a problem with that. We're cutting back on the end game. The IGA that's proposed tonight. You've probably already got the summary in your packet, but basically you're not moving the skate park, so the town doesn't have to incur that cost, the library doesn't have to incur that cost. That was $5K to each of us. You also are relieving us of about $1,000 cost for engineering documents for the dump station, which we really appreciate. The new thing that's in the IGA, of course, is the moving of the siren that neither of us predicted back at either IGA time that we were going to have to move that siren or pay for it. So what we're proposing tonight is to do what we did with the skate park and just split that cost. Right now the IGA has us incurring $4,000 of additional debt instead of $5,000 less, because we're not moving the skate park, we're paying $10,000 more for the siren. So we're just proposing, and we think it's fair and equitable, that we share that cost. That's all I have on that, and then Sandy wanted to talk about.
And I have one more request, and I'm not sure if this is the appropriate venue, but the library district is on the hook for buying a water share, and we have that in our budget, and we're going to do that. But as of last week and again today, there isn't one available on the market. So we would like to ask the town if that could be a condition of our certificate of occupancy instead of our permit. So that would not hold up the permit. And I just talked to your utilities manager, and he said sometimes it's a twice yearly sale. So there'd definitely be one for sale before the building is completed. And I don't know if that's something that you have to direct staff to allow us to do. I'm not sure exactly how that works, but I'd like some leeway on that, and we'd really appreciate that.
And that's it. Thanks. Thank you. Anyone else for audience business? Okay, we'll close audience business, although I do have a proclamation that I'd like to read into the record. This is a proclamation by the Board of Trustees of the Town of Lyons, Colorado, recognizing and expressing appreciation for Governor John W. Hickenlooper for his leadership, support, and assistance in Lyons flood recovery and resiliency. Whereas Governor John W. Hickenlooper has been serving our state since 2011 and directly supporting the Lyons community since the devastating flood of 2013. And whereas Governor Hickenlooper formed the Colorado Resiliency and Recovery Office to help empower Colorado communities in building stronger, safer, and more resilient in the face of natural disasters and other major challenges. And whereas he adopted legislation supporting public infrastructure funding and signed the bill in the Lyons Confluence neighborhood. And whereas Governor Hickenlooper facilitated and supported $9.5 million of advance funding for Lyons disaster recovery. And whereas over the past 5 years, he has shown a personal interest in Lyons business and community recovery by regularly visiting and inquiring about recovery efforts. And whereas the Lyons Board of Trustees wishes to express its deep appreciation to Governor John W. Hickenlooper, now therefore the Board of Trustees of the Town of Lyons hereby proclaims that the new trail located on flood-acquired property at 341 Park Street be designated as the John W. Hickenlooper Way, and that the town clerk shall affix the seal of the Town of Lyons to this proclamation. So I just want to thank the staff, one, for the event. I think the town really showed well in both the events, both Monday and Thursday, and I know there's a lot of effort from Kim and Ariel and all the Parks team to put that together. But I think the community really, really enjoyed that, and the governor was truly touched by our gesture of appreciation. But I said it in my comments there that this could have gone very differently. And I think that his leadership at the state was really above par. So I thought it was really nice. He was very excited about it. He took the sign home with him. And so here's a map. It's on the prior state sequential. And it's a loop. And so he really got a kick out of the loop. So I'll pass this around in case the board who wasn't able to attend wants to look at that. So thanks to the staff for also putting that together. And then I do have one appointment I want to make. So I would like to appoint Lauren Click to the Arts and Humanity Board. And I understand they have maybe a couple members who might be having to step down for other reasons. And Lauren doesn't live in the town of Lyons, but she brings a wealth of grant writing experience to that group and is very interested in lending her services to Lyons. So happy to appoint her if the board has no objections. All right, great, thank you. All right, we can go ahead and I'd ask for a motion to close, or not close, but to recess as the Board of Trustees and open as the Lyons marijuana licensing.
I move that we recess as the Board of Trustees and open as the Lyons Local Marijuana Licensing Authority, and upon adjournment of that authority, return to the Board of Trustees.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Any further discussion? Call for the vote. We are now the Marijuana Licensing Authority. I'll turn it over to staff.
All right, in the packet included, I have a staff report that I put together. On August 2nd, I received a complete marijuana application from Tia and Kelsey, who are working under High Culture LLC, doing business as High Culture Cannabis. They applied for a new retail marijuana license that would be located at 4170 Highway. This is the lot that was recently subdivided in the Vasquez Minor subdivision, and it'll be in the first lot, not the second lot. Per ordinance 952, we're allowed to have three marijuana licenses active in town. So if this license is approved tonight, this would cap that number of licenses that we could issue. They have submitted all documentation. The town relies heavily on the Colorado Bureau of Investigation for their background checks. We run a limited one through Boulder County, and then the CBI does a more intensive one, and they've cleared all those background checks. Everything came back clear. We do have a lease on file with them, and if you went through it, the lease terminated July 30th, 2018 with a 3-month renewal period. And the reason this was written that way, purchase of the property was contingent on approval of this license. So they were given the retail marijuana license through the state conditionally. So if we approve it locally, then it's good to go. If we deny it, that state license goes away. But I had heard from the applicants that pending tonight's outcome, the closing of the property was scheduled for tomorrow. Other than that, we posted notice on the property August 28th, it published in the newspaper August 30th. We have not received any complaints for or against, pro or con, for this license. So other than that, I can't think anything. There was one issue that came up. The applicants did apply for their sales tax license, and they received it, and on the license itself, it had 4170 Ute Highway in Larimer County. So I did write a letter confirming that they were indeed in the town of Lyons, and they have sent all that off. And I heard back from them that the state did change their sales tax license, and they should be receiving the updated one anytime in the mail. So that's the only thing that's for them. The only other thing too, the diagrams that we submitted as part of the application are very elementary because they're waiting to see if the license was approved. They have met with planner Paul Glasgow to start the development plan process for putting a new building and business there on the eastern corridor. So they're on the right track. Everything was just kind of hinging on the approval of the license tonight.
All right, would the applicants like to come forward and make a presentation?
Hi, I'm Tia Welch. And I'm Kelsey Fox. And basically we're very excited to become a part of this community if our license is approved. We both have experience in this industry, and we're really excited to kind of start on this venture and especially excited because it's in Lyons, which we believe is a hub for business, and new entrepreneurs such as Oscar Blues, which started here and is an amazing company. I mean, I second everything that she said, and hopefully we get approved tonight. And if you have any questions, we are open to taking them.
Okay, yeah, why don't you stay here just in case
Sure.
anybody has questions for you. Anyone have a question they want to start with? Trustee Brown?
I do. My question is about the lease. I noticed that it was expired with the extension.
Yes.
And the staff report says ownership of licensed premises lease, but you have also a contract to purchase signed?
We do, yes, and our closing is scheduled for tomorrow at 1:30 p.m. if contingent on our approval here. We'll be closing.
So, Trustee Farrell.
I have a legal question for the attorney. Is it legal that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Dolores, are you related to the company that owns this property currently, and with your doing this paperwork, is that a conflict of interest at all? Does
No,
that
I
create a
have
legal
no
issue for us?
financial benefit from any of it.
Okay.
He's my father-in-law.
Okay.
But I don't own any of the property or the business or anything.
Okay, so I wanted to verify that, because
Yeah.
that was a red flag, that could later become a problem. And then, am I reading this correctly, that the lease payment is in monthly installments of $10?
That was just so that we could start surveying while we were still under contract, so that we could build.
So, surveying for the building
Yeah, so that we
process.
could start building as soon as we got everything approved.
Okay.
Yeah, we just wanted to start moving on the process of, doing our topo and all of that, so that as soon as this got approved, we would really be able to start diving into building and kind of have that foundation for building moving forward.
Okay.
So how big is the building going to be? I looked at your drawing, but it was really hard to read the tiny print. So how large of a facility will it be?
2,000 square feet.
Okay, and it's all sales, so there's
Correct.
no, this isn't a manufacturing.
Oh,
license,
no,
it's
no.
only retail.
Only
Retail, no medical.
No medical sales, okay. Any other questions?
Well, just a point of information, in Lyons, there's one type of license. So you
Retail.
can-
It's retail.
But my recollection is that it's a medical, or a marijuana center, either way. You can go back and forth if you
Well,
want.
except licensing with the state, which has to be
The state, but.
parallel with us. They have to declare it what it's going to be at that level. So in this case, it's only going to be retail product, no medical.
Okay.
I think we fall, we have separate licenses for medical and
And
for
retail.
So
And
you
they're
couldn't
only-
go back and forth,
Right.
yes.
They're only applying for retail at this point.
The board would only have authority to grant.
It's probably a discussion for another time. but-
Okay. And a question for staff, do they have to go through a site development review process?
Yes, and they have met with Paul on that to start the preliminary talks on what's needed and what they'll need to
Okay.
develop the lot.
I know parking is a little challenging. So, do you know yet how many parking spaces you plan to have?
5
And will they be in the front or the back?
in the front.
In the front? Okay.
Well, along the side of the building.
There's a drawing in your packet.
Okay, I know, I just had a hard time really reading it. Okay, yeah, you can kind of see that. Okay,
It looks like more than that.
all right.
So this is,
It's a very preliminary drawing.
All right, any other questions for the applicants?
I've got a question for the staff, or
Yes,
town attorney. The listing of criteria we're supposed to look at says ownership of licensed premises, lease. Do we need to see a contract for purchase, or have you seen a contract for purchase? Is this good enough for us to vote on it, is my question, I guess.
We would recommend that the motion be conditioned upon closing of the property.
Does that create a circular problem for them? Because the closing is conditional on the approval, and if the approval is conditional on the closing, how does
But the
that work?
lease is in effect right now.
It's an effective lease, so they do have a lease on the property, which could also be continued for another 3 months if needed.
Correct.
But,
And
okay.
that's legally sufficient?
Yes.
And there's nothing that states that they have to be X amount of feet away from another marijuana business. Is that-
It is in place and they meet it.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there a motion?
I think we do need the opportunity for public comment according to the state
Oh, we do.
licensing code, so if anyone has any interest in public comment at this
Well, we'll
time.
go ahead and open the public comment period on the application. Would anyone like to speak?
Yeah.
Nick Angelo, 4089 Union Highway. My only question is, every other marijuana establishment is required to have both licenses, medical and recreational. And so, and that was a condition when the recreational came on board, that they had to have both. I'm just wondering in this situation, whether the applicant is also required, as every other marijuana establishment in town is, to have both of those licenses.
Thank you. I'll let staff maybe respond to that. I don't know if you want to explain.
When the
more.
licensing first was allowed here in Lyons, it was only medical licenses that were approved. Then the second vote by the state allowed retail licenses. And so then at that point, they could opt to get a retail license. So at the state level too, they have to have a medical and a retail if that's what they choose to operate. They've opted not to apply for the medical, and that was okay with the state when I contacted with them, because they'd applied through the retail process and they don't hold a medical license anywhere else, so they weren't required to tell me.
As well, the code provides separate processes and say that either can be selected and doesn't require them both be selected at the same time.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I think we.
Am I not allowed to
No.
address the board again?
No, I think the rule is generally one time per public hearing, sorry. Anyone else would like to comment on public hearing? All right, we'll close the public comment, and I would ask the board for a motion.
I'll move to approve the application of High Culture LLC, DBA High Culture Cannabis, for a new retail marijuana license based on the findings set forth in the staff report for the September 17, 2018 meeting, and based on the following additional findings: that the applicant is of good moral character and not prohibited as a licensee, that the premises are suitable based on a review of the plans submitted or will be during the site development plan review. I further move to direct town staff to notify the State of Colorado Marijuana Enforcement Division of this approval.
I'll second that.
All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All right, and you're approved, 7-0. Welcome to Lyons.
Thank you. We're excited to be here.
All right, is there a motion to adjourn as the marijuana licensing authority and return to the board of trustees?
So moved.
Is there a second? Deb, I'll let you figure out who you get to. All right, I'll call for the vote. And we are back as the board of trustees. Will the clerk please read the items on consent into the record, please?
First we have SFC update.
Oh, I'm sorry. How could I do
Come on up,
that?
guys.
I'm sorry. Toby. Come on up.
I'm not here too, if you want to sit here.
Oh, they're good.
Thanks, John.
I'm all confused. I did my equipment at the wrong one, too. Yeah. I know, yeah. It's usually right there. I'm just trying myself to remember. All right, take it away.
Great. Good evening, Mayor and trustees. Thank you very much for inviting myself, Dave Hachimondi, Chair of the SFC, and you all know Toby, to come talk with you in regards to both the EcoPass as well as the Sustainability Coordinator position and different funding options for both. I think to start off with, well, first of all, I did also want to state, because it will kind of get a little blurred at times, is that restate the fact that both Toby, on a part-time basis, as well as myself, work for Boulder County, and particularly in the sustainability area. But with that said, I think we'd start off with, by just briefing you, because it's a little bit more, quite a bit more straightforward, is the EcoPass, the status of it, and what type of funding requests ourselves, as well as the SFC as a commission is recommending.
Excellent, and I will talk to the EcoPass because I've been in conversations with Boulder County Transportation. There have been a lot moving with RTD and the way they are changing fees and changing services and all their budgeting pieces. So it's been a moving target for the past 6 months. What will happen to the fees for single tickets, but also how they are structuring their EcoPass program, the community EcoPass program. What it looks like now is that rather than basing it on projections that the county worked out with RTD on how much Lyons Community EcoPass would be utilized, they've been able to dig up actual usage data, which is really nice. We've been asking them for usage data for 8 years now, and we've never been able to get it, but now they want to charge us by usage. They're suddenly miraculously able to find it, which is nice. The impact of that on the community-wide EcoPass is that there is an increase in the overall cost of the program. And it's going to incrementally increase over the next 3 years, with 2019 looking at $39,916 for the community eco-wide the pass program versus $34,000, which it's been for the last 5 years. The way that has been distributed in the past, because I know we've got some new board members since previous years, is that initially Lyons had put $10K towards the EcoPass program, and Boulder County had paid for the rest of the program. That changed in 2017, where I think Town of Lyons put instead, they put in close to 14,000 and then 19,000 last year. So Lyons has been contributing $5K more for the past 2 years for the program than in previous years. We've supplemented that additional cost by charging fees for the pass. In 2017, we charged $25 per pass, and we sold, sorry, I've got pages of data here. I love data, it's my favorite thing. We've sold 330 passes. We upped that fee charge to $45 last year, hoping that we'd be able to project that we'd make $12,000. We have not hit that. We've had less people purchase the pass this year at 205. So right now, our revenue for the EcoPass program in 2018 is $9,225, which is about $2,700 less than we projected. Next year, Boulder County have agreed to pay the additional cost for the EcoPass that RTD is charging, so there will be no increase to Lyons next year over what we paid this year, which is incredibly generous of them. And so we're looking at the same model for next year, but if we were to project what we get in fees, we'd only project 10K versus the 12K that we projected last year, because we did this year because we didn't need it. So if we were making a budget request, which the SFC voted on that we would, it would be 10K projected in fees and 10K from the general fund, like we've done for the past 7 years towards the EcoPass program to continue. I think that covers most things there. The only other big ticket item with the EcoPass is the bus service, is that RTD is dropping the midday service, which is crazy to a certain degree, because Boulder County have been paying for that service outright. So in addition to paying towards the EcoPass program, Boulder County Transportation have been paying $23,000 towards paying for that midday service to run it, RTD said they simply do not have the drivers to operate it. So it's not that they're not making any money from the midday service, even though ridership is low at an average of 3 people per bus. It is because they do not have the riders to fund it and they cannot physically operate it any longer. We're going to continue discussions with Boulder County Transportation. They understand that we've lost our healthcare center. They understand that we've got people in need who need to get places. One of the things that they said, they have money to contribute towards supporting services to get people places that they need to be, and earmarked around $25,000 to do that. Now, that's not necessarily a SFC piece at that point. It might move over to Health and Human Services with some support from staff, but that is also an offer from the county that's relevant for the board to know.
Trustee Watt?
What, do you know the ridership for the morning and evening?
For not off the top of my head, but it's much higher because our commuter traffic is pretty high on those trips. I have total numbers for 2017 that looked at for local fares, which are like the hops, the skips, the Boulder buses, or the local ones in Denver. We've had 5,539 people on those, rides on those. For regional fares, which is... For the year, okay. Yes. For regional fares, we've had 7,610 rides, which is back and forth to Boulder. And for the airport, we've had 781 different rides.
Thank you.
Trustee Farrell?
Are we still planning then to pay, are you still planning to charge $45 a pass?
We
Can I
might...
just correct you? It's 40. It is 40.
Was it 40? Okay, sorry.
Okay,
Thank you.
40.
Thank you. I think we would still keep the price the same rather than decrease it and have additional campaigns and put stuff out there to try and just increase ridership and trying to increase people applying for it. I don't think we found from rising the fare from 25 to 40, it did not increase we did not keep the same people. Now there may have just been some people who bought it to begin with who thought they were using it for longer and didn't get a justification in the price. But I don't see any justification in raising the price above 40. But the value of it's in the thousands of dollars, so I don't see any reason to lower it either.
Trustee Brown?
With regard to people who may not purchase the EcoPass but use the bus for single trips back and forth, RTD is also proposing increasing the fare from $4.50 to $5.25. Isn't that right?
Something
so
like that.
It would cost somebody $10.50 to take a bus from Lyons to Boulder and back for a single trip.
Which, if you then say the EcoPass is on sale for $40, that may give us more buy-in for people getting it, right? Like it's another piece of the puzzle. But yeah, RTD is increasing their fares all across the board.
So I guess my comment is we lost 100 riders when we raised the price.
Yeah.
And one of the goals of the program is to try to get more people to ride the bus. So I guess I would ask you to maybe reconsider whether 40 is the right price point.
Absolutely.
You know, is 30, would you get more of those people back if it were a little less expensive? And maybe at 40 you feel like, well, if I'm not going to commute and ride it enough, it's not going to be worth it. But I think unless people try it, they may not realize that the bus could work for them if the goal is to get people out of their cars. I think the other thing is it's a great secret that we even have the program. We don't talk about it and we don't sell it. And so I think if we're going to keep subsidizing this, because what we're doing is we're really subsidizing people, regular riders in their commute, a fairly small number of people that regularly ride. I think it has to come with some sort of active program that puts the word out that it's available, that, you know, buy early because you get the most out of it, and promote it. You know, so I think an education campaign of sorts would be really nice. I know if you've lived here long enough, you know it's out there, but I think we push it for a short period of time, then you kind of don't hear about it. So I don't know what, you know, I'd like to just, I think it is important to get the number of riders up, actually.
Yeah, no doubt. No, and I don't agree with getting the number of riders up.
Yeah.
And so I'm totally, I've kind of run it by the SFC when we're discussing the fees and then work with staff, so I'm totally open in taking that feedback and working with it.
So it's certainly a discussion we'll have at budget time, and, you know, what to do with it. But I also am worried that the loss of the midday route might have deterred people from buying the pass, but it sounds like you're saying it was not highly used anyway, so maybe it won't be a bigger
Right,
deal.
well, losing the midday option is gonna happen here in the future. And so it's, right, it's
Yeah.
existed. I think it's purely speculative, just because we can't get this data from RTD is, we don't know how many folks, perhaps because of that $40 price point, chose to go with their employer option. You know, a lot of employers throughout the county offer the Eco Pass, and so folks were like, all right, well, $20, yeah, I can contribute for the better good of the town. But once, it started getting up there to $40, I don't know whether or not folks are going, oh, my employer also, offers, this same benefit. But I think we certainly can, as a commission, look at, did we perhaps set the bar? The only, the only downside is, we are projecting roughly $10,000 in revenues coming from fees for next year. In the event that we lower it to 30 or back to its original amount, and the renewals stay flat, the same, we're, as a town, on the hook for that, difference. And so just, something for us, I think all to keep in mind. We're mentally, we're thinking, as a town, we're gonna be contributing $10,000 to it. Our riderships who have the passes will be, contributing 10. That's how we will fund this.
Yeah, I think it'd just be nice to set a ridership goal with the program. I mean, in that way we can.
I think there's two people that use the bus. The $40, if you're a daily commuter, no big deal.
Yeah, big.
But when you're a family of 4 and you want, if you're getting 4 people a pass and you might use it 2 or 3 times, it's just not worth it. So, I don't know if there's even a possibility of a tiered, that if you buy more than one, the price goes down, something like
We have
that.
a cap for a family, $120 this year, so that,
So it'd be 3
so that
tickets.
you could get 3, everyone after 3 you could get for free, to try and address that. One of the things we could also do to help inform the decision would be to send out a survey to existing folks who bought it, to understand, would the price point alter them renewing it, and where do they go, and get some more information from them at this point. That wouldn't hurt in any way.
Well, thank you. If you can bring some more information during budget, for our budget discussion, that might be helpful.
Sure.
All right, you can move on to the.
Great. Yeah, let's talk sustainability coordinator, and
And I'm not going to talk because I have conflicts of interest. So
Right.
A direct financial impact.
So actually, our rule is when there's a conflict, you have to leave the room.
Yeah. I can totally do that, yeah, because it's about the future of my position, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
We
this
need to
is-
call them in at times. But anyway, so back in 2014, the town of Lyons adopted their environmental sustainability action plan, and within that plan there were roughly 60 recommended goals that were covering, buildings, energy, water, waste, and transportation. And I would point to Toby going, did I miss one? And so just to kind of bring you up to date, roughly about almost half of those to date we can check off and say we've got that done. I do want to say that is, very much the credit of us attaining that, and hopefully, we can continue checking things off is due to that having a sustainability coordinator position. The SFC, as you all know, is a volunteer commission, and we don't have it within our bandwidth to implement those goals that the town of Lyons wants us to address when it comes to sustainability. So that said, looking towards 2019, we've identified that there's 3 potential funding options. The first would be that, so for the last 3 years, 4 years, both the town as well as, the town has leveraged Boulder County Sustainability Matching Grant to offset the cost, the expense of having a part-time sustainability coordinator here. The first option that we'd like to present, or that I would like to present on behalf of the SFC, is that the town assumes the full cost of this position. In the past, when we brought up, we want to use the sustainability matching grant that the county offers for this position, it was always with the understanding or acknowledgement by prior BOTs that, we understand this is not a long-term funding source for this position, and that, yes, assuming, provided there's value in it, assuming that the town would, take on the entire cost is something worth continuing to consider. So that's option 1. Option 2, and I'll go over briefly if there's time for you, some of the pros and cons of each of the other options. Option 2 is the business as usual. This year, the sustainability matching grant that the county has offered is open for applications. It closes on October 12th. And so we're going to need to get some feedback from y'all on what would you like us to put in this grant proposal for the county. And then the third option, and some folks may have started hearing about it, this idea of this mountain town sustainability coordinator position. And I will say that it's all very, very conceptual, both at the county perspective as well as for the towns. But conceptually, the whole idea is that Lyons, Nederland, Ward, and Jamestown, since there tends to be a lot of things in common, being mountain communities, obviously, than say some of the eastern part of the county municipalities. But the idea is that we all pool, funds, as well as, and the county would also need to contribute funds to fund a full-time sustainability coordinator position, who would, depending on the allocation of those funds, might a couple of days be, dedicated to Lyons, a day or two in Ned, a day or a half a day in Ward and Jamestown somehow. And so this idea is something, again, it's still kind of in the ethers. It's very conceptual, but there is the possibility of that. If you'd like, I can provide some of the pros and cons that we see out of those 3 options.
I think we're kind of getting short
sure.
on time.
Sure.
I think, the memo was really nicely written,
Great.
so we appreciate that very much.
Right. I would just then like to close in regards to that. What the SFC has voted on to recommend to you all is that that the town of Lyons considers fully funding this position, which would then free up those sustainability matching grant funds to be used for other high priority sustainability needs within the town.
That was actually one of my questions for you is, what have we used the matching grant for in the past?
Boy, That, I'm thinking
All our
back.
projects, zero
Yeah,
waste, zero waste projects, so Toby's gone. Zero
Mhm.
waste projects, cleanup days, I think it went.
Yeah, well, in some of those, actually, so there's two grants that
Oh, two
are
separate
given.
grants.
One's a matching grant, the sustainability matching grant of up to $15,000
Mhm.
from the county, and that has been what has been covering a portion of the sustainability coordinator position. There's also a zero waste grant. And so it's things like, a lot of times the zero waste grant is for like a one-time shot. The whole idea is, this is an ongoing funding stream. If we need, recycling bins, we'll apply for that grant for that.
So, I don't know if you have a suggestion on the grant or not, because it sounds like you need some response from the board on
For the October
whether to
12th.
apply for that grant for this position. So, I think that the only comment I'll offer maybe to start is that the shared position thing has never, from at least my perspective, has been challenging. We've tried that with some other positions from time to time. I don't know what staff's perspective on it was, but from here it was hard to understand how to keep continuity with the projects when that person was not dedicated to Lyons. So, that's kind of my feedback on that proposal. Maybe this could be different, but I don't know, staff, you have anything else to add?
I would, certainly agree to that, and there is a lot less control over that position that the town would have, especially, when it comes to unilateral hiring and firing decisions.
So,
we have not got to talk about it yet, so we were kind of interested in your discussion tonight before we move forward. The other communities that were being considered in the Mountain Strong or the Mountain Town grant arrangement, are they all applying for their coordinator yet this year? Because it isn't determined yet how that would work?
Well, first of all, none of those three other towns have a position like this
We'd be the lead.
within the town.
Okay, any other thoughts, Trustee Brown?
Question, I want to say, maybe this hasn't changed, but I'm not sure this information came out. If we went for option 2, which was business as usual, ask for the Boulder County Sustainability Matching Grant to again fund half of Toby's position. I think the situation was that it's not clear that Boulder County is willing to do that again because that wasn't supposed to be a permanent grant, is that correct?
Yes, I mean, any grant application is, it's up to the funders to decide whether this is it would be allowed. I mean, I've, just from my position at the county, I've heard both ways, yes. I think that, that all we can do is put it out there.
We have in our preliminary budgeting included 20 hours for this position, just to see where the initial budget comes out. So that will help make some decisions too.
Yeah, two questions. One was, when would the grants be announced, awards be announced?
I think they do them in November.
Early
Yes,
November.
it's not very long.
So right after we're done with our budget. Is that?
Well, we adopt our budget the 1st of December.
First of December is when we adopt it. So could we make a change if we, between November 1st and?
Sure.
Okay, so that's one thing. The other question is, has there been discussion about factoring in additional possible revenue sources?
Such as?
Such as additional charge at the cleanup day or charging for picking up yard waste and that sort of thing.
Right. I mean, we've discussed it last Thursday, the SFC met and Trustee Browning was there, and we were talking more about the idea of, you know, pickups and cleanup day fees, more around, all right, if we weren't, if the town chose to fund this position in its entirety, what could we use that sustainability grant for? And so I think the three things that the SFC recommended was, one was a camera as well as the monitoring resources to have positioned at our new drop-off center, just to hopefully curb or at least monitor illegal dumping. So that was a cost. Another was the idea of a 1 to 2 late summer, fall yard waste drop-off events. Now, I know there's been discussion about, can we just, you know, replicate another whole spring cleanup where we're picking up everything? And we discussed that as a commission, and we ourselves voted that that's not something that we want to be, you know, involved with the management and all the volunteerism that goes on into that, but that we would support and volunteer at just the yard waste, so the limbs and the leaves technical pickup.
So maybe I could suggest this, since we're kind of running out of time, is that this is really a staff, this is something that's kind of on staff's plate right now. I mean, you're building the budget proposal and staffing. So would the board be comfortable just letting staff work with SFC and figure out the best way to approach this? Okay, all right.
Yes,
Thank you so much for your time and all your volunteer hours as a commissioner.
You're welcome.
All right. So since I've already taken care of my appointments, we can move on to the consent agenda. The clerk will please read those items into the record.
We have the September 2018 accounts payable, the August 20, 2018 Board of Trustee meeting minutes, September 4th, 2018 Board of Trustees meeting minutes, the first reading on ordinance 1043, an ordinance of the Town of Lyons, Colorado, amending sections of Chapter 2 of the Town Municipal Code regarding the term of the mayor for the Town of Lyons. First reading of ordinance 1044, an ordinance of the Town of Lyons, Colorado, amending sections of Chapter 13 of the Town Municipal Code regarding the charging of interest on all delinquent utility accounts. Resolution 2018-80, a resolution to accept a new Town of Lyons whistleblower policy and updates to the grant application process policy and personally identifiable information policy and purchasing policy procedures. Resolution 2018-70, a resolution of the Town of Lyons making the 2015 International Fire Code effective within the borders of the Town of Lyons with certain exceptions.
Would anyone like to pull any items from consent?
Yes, I would like to pull item 5, which is resolution 1040, ordinance 1044, regarding charging of interest on delinquent utility accounts.
Okay, just so we know, it's first reading, so the only
Oh,
discussion
it's
we'll
first
have
reading,
is about whether
never
we
mind,
will
then.
actually
Okay.
move it to second reading.
No,
You're not
I
gonna pull
missed
it?
it, it was first reading. I will withdraw my request to
Okay.
remove that.
I'd like to pull 6 and 7.
All right, is there a motion to approve the remaining items on consent?
So moved.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Now I'll call for the vote. All right, and those items are passed. Okay, so the first item in general business is resolution 2018-32. I'll turn it over to staff. This is the library.
Paul?
Thank you. This, so staff, with some direction from the board, went back and looked at the IGA and contemplated which items to take out of there. And we considered the ones that we weren't going to necessarily need, the skate park and the engineering for the dump station. and recommended pulling those two items from the IGA. Not funding those via the library, not requesting funds to reimburse the relocation of the skate park or the engineering design for the relocation of the dump station. And one of the items that we had not contemplated in the original IGA was the relocation of the emergency siren. So we added that back into this version, of the IGA. And we received a request from the library that we split that cost after this was posted. So the staff would recommend modifying the current version of the IGA to split that cost. So instead of requiring $5,000 or $10,000, up to $10,000 reimbursement, we require up to a $5,000 reimbursement for the relocation of the sign.
Any other comment? Any other changes that you would want to point out? Were there any other substantive changes in the language?
No.
What about the request earlier about the water share dedication? That's not, I don't know if that was in the development agreement. So would that require a change in that agreement?
No, the request, I believe, is for moving that to the required water share to certificate of occupancy rather than permitting. And we'd be okay with that. It's not in the IGA or in the development agreement. And we believe we can handle that administratively.
Any other questions for staff?
I have a question. So I just want to make sure that I'm understanding this correctly. As it is right now, that I see it before it was asked to split, we're basically, it would be about a $26,000. I mean, I see 6,000 and then I see 10, but I don't see a total. So we're talking about a combination of $26,000.
No, we removed I think it was $6,000 in total with the skate park. The liability for the library was $5,000 for the relocation of the skate park and $1,000 for the redesign of the dump station for relocation, the engineering design for relocation of the dump station. So we removed those from the IGA and reduced that liability.
Okay.
We added to that $10,000 due to the relocation of the siren.
So the value of this piece of paper right here is $10,000.
It's an additional
that the town would pay for.
That's correct. $10,000 that the town would pay for.
But now they've requested to split it, so it's 5.
Yes.
Okay.
So in net, I guess the library would be saving $1,000 if you were to accept them in If they were not, it'd be a net negative of $4,000 for the library.
Yeah, they're going to pay more if we pass this agreement tonight.
This isn't written in a way that I understood that at all.
Yeah.
So I found this to be rather confusing. So right now, we're talking about $5,000. I guess
in this document here, yes.
Okay.
$6,000 that was reduced. Sorry, $5,000 for the moving of the skate park, $1,000 for engineering for the relocated dump station, and if we add $5,000 from the relocation of the siren, we would be essentially reducing the liability to the library, $11,000.
Okay.
$5,000 if we split.
Well, we reduced it to $5,000 for the skate park, $1,000 for the engineering.
But they're asking for us to split the siren costs of $5,000 each, so there would be a net
savings
to the library of $1,000 if the town picks up $5,000.
Madam Mayor?
Trustee Karas?
Over the last IG.
Does the staff have a simple spreadsheet from the very beginning of this process what the library is paying for and what the townspeople are paying for, and the running total, keeping these balances, because it keeps changing from IGA to IGA, so that we can have true accountability and true transparency to the townspeople of Lyons, since that's who we actually report to.
Do you have a spreadsheet?
No, I was only involved in this IGA.
Well, let me just back up for a second. Well, go ahead, finish.
Well, I was just gonna say, because previous board, the previous pro tem, and you may have talked about transparency, we have yet to really truly show to the taxpayers of Lyons what the true costs are, and they keep changing, and we have trustees that are just now getting involved. It is somewhat confusing as you bounce around. It would really be nice to have a spreadsheet that we can show everybody.
I don't think we need one, quite honestly. We've given them land. I mean, we really haven't contributed any dollars to this project from the town.
What's the cost of the land?
Well, I think we got, did you guys have it raised? I don't even know if we did.
What was it,
$10? No cost analysis was ever done on the land.
But we still own the land, we're leasing them the land. So it's a long-term lease, granted. But the reason I brought this up, and we've managed to make way more complicated, and now we're nickel and diming that it's hardly worth anyone's time. But I think that the point is that I think we have to not think of this as the town. This is a project for the community. We are the community. We're one and the same. This is a community legacy project that is going to outlive all of us. And I think the town needs to care about how good a job we do building this library. This is a joint project. We can't look at this as this is the library's job to build us this, magical library. It's going to mostly benefit our citizens. We are the citizens. It's the same. It's their money. And so I guess I don't look at this necessarily as our bank account versus their bank account. I want this to be a project that 25 years from now we come back and we're all really, really proud of. And they're struggling to make this thing fund. And so I'm worried about just, can we make sure that this is a project that actually really serves the community? So I think the community voted to say, we want this. We're willing to fund this. We're willing to be taxed for this. And so we are, yes, I'm asking, does this board want to contribute something more to this project over and above the land contribution that we've made? I don't think we've made any significant financial contribution. So that's just why it was brought up to begin with. I think if we're at the point to where this is a $1,000 document, I'd entertain a motion just to let it go. So Trustee Farrell actually was first, and then Trustee Ronan.
I don't disagree in any way, shape, or form, but when I read this, I had no idea what was the amount that we were being asked for. And so, for clarity's sake, I really didn't understand it.
No, fair enough.
Okay.
Trustee Brown.
I have some questions that go directly to Trustee Caravas's inquiry about how much support the board has already, prior boards have already agreed to provide the library in addition to the land. I believe, Paul, doesn't the 2017 IGA waive the water tap fee?
It waives the portion that the town accepts. It does not waive the portion that we pay the loan on.
So what's that in dollar wise? Because it's $35,000 for 1 inch. This is a 1 inch tap.
It would be the balance. 2,885 is what we pay to Longmont times 2. So that would be 17 minus that, 14. Yeah, so roughly 14,000.
Times 2 or 1? So they
times
have,
2.
So the number of taps here is 2 1 inch taps? Is that what they're?
2 3/4.
2 3/4 inch taps? Okay.
Which is yeah.
So those would be 17,500 each.
17,500 if we did not waive our portion.
And we've waived our portion, so that really, that was 35,000. Well, we've waived our portion, but they still have to pay roughly 5,000 to Longmont.
Yeah.
So we've really waived $30,000 worth of taps, roughly. Correct?
Correct.
That's for water. Now for wastewater, the 2017 IGA waives an $8,500 wastewater tap fee, does it not?
Correct.
also waived a traffic impact statement requirement, but I believe the estimated cost was $5,000 on that.
Correct.
Now, part of something else in the 2017 agreement says that the new library building will be treated, I believe the words are something like, commensurate with a new town-owned building on this site. And if that's how its fees for its utility services will be calculated, what does that mean exactly in terms of dollar and cents, both for usage fees and for base fees?
We have a town rate that we charge ourselves.
What is that? How does that compare to what we would charge a non-residential customer?
It's about $4 a thousand for water, 1,000 gallons discount, and then we don't charge base fees.
So that we will be waiving the base fees for electric and water
And sewer.
and sewer. And if I've calculated, the electric base fee is now $18 a month, correct? The water base fee is $58.50 a month for a non-residential customer. Is that correct? And then the wastewater is $22.65 a month. My math is right, that's $1,189 per year, 50-year lease, $59,000. Plus, what would happen if we decide, because of our issues in our funds, to raise base fees, say, in future years? Doesn't affect the library district.
Right.
We'd be also waiving any future base rate increases. We've also waived 30% of our normal review and inspection fees. Is that correct?
More. We exempted them from the plan review fees at building official.
Any estimate of what that would be in terms of dollars?
I don't know exactly, but I think it was around $10,000.
Now, with regard to the new dump station, both the engineering and the installation, is that going to be a cost to the town?
Yes.
Any idea what the cost of that would be, both the engineering and the installation?
We're about $10,000 into the electric, and the county's $70,000 in the building, the pad, and the ramps.
No. How much would it cost for you to engineer a dump station?
Oh, 1,000.
And how much to actually put one in, build it?
Ooh, that's gonna be in the $10,000 range without the automation.
So that'd be an $11,000 total item?
But we'd have that same repair now, just to offset that, because it's not working right now.
I see. So it's something we'd have to fix anyway?
Yeah.
So really, all we're really contributing to, we would be relieving the library district from its current $1,000 obligation to contribute to the engineering costs. Okay. All right, that's all my questions.
So can you just clarify, when we build a municipal building, do we charge these fees to any other municipal building in the town?
No.
So this is a municipal project, so we're not waiving these because we would have never charged them in the first place. So while I appreciate that you
Point of
can
order. We don't have a
calculate, I'm
motion.
sorry.
We don't have a motion,
I
then.
have the floor.
Point of order.
I have the floor. So just to clarify, the list you ran off, some of those are legitimate, but I would argue that the tap fees are things that you wouldn't charge a municipal building anyway. This is a public facility. It may be owned by the district, but if we were building this as a town, we would be waiving all those same things for the most part. So I'm just gonna say I take your point that there are some contributions here. We could charge them if we wanted to, but I'm not actually clear if we could charge them all of those fees. So, Town Attorney?
Can we call a motion if we're going to discuss the validity of the IGA being requested?
Sure, I'd entertain a motion.
I'd move to approve resolution 2018-82.
I'll second.
All right, further discussion?
Oh, yeah.
No, we can continue discussion. Thank you. So there's a motion on the floor to approve it as it stands. So if there's no further discussion.
Oh, I have further discussion.
Trustee Browning? I would ask you to keep your comments brief, please. Just because we need to keep moving. We have an appeal. I would like to take a break before that.
I'll keep them as brief as I can. But while I have the floor, I want to be able to continue my statements. I would estimate, it's my guess, anybody's welcome to quibble, that the RTD lot, half-acre lot, prime location in town, there's not a better location anywhere, is probably worth $1 million. The waived wastewater tap fee is $35,000. Excuse me, the waived water tap fee is about, excuse me, the net of that is about $30,000. The waived wastewater tap fee is $8,500. The waived traffic information item that would normally be required for another building is $5,000. Potential base fee waivers are about $60,000 plus whatever base fee increases would exist during the 50-year term of the lease. Another $10,000 in review and inspection fees. Another $1,000 we were relieving them from for the dump stations. This is not a municipal building. This is a building being built by a separate, well-funded taxing district. It has its own sources of funds, both tax funds, grant funds, and donations. I fully support the new library. I worked hard to get the district passed, contributed personally to it. I support the capital campaign and commend the library district and its foundation for the wonderful job they've done in securing grants and donations. However, the theory that the town is saving $100,000 a year and therefore all of these concessions are worthwhile, I think is flawed. Who's making up that $100,000 plus difference are the taxpayers who voted to tax themselves to fund the new district. They haven't saved any money. They're paying additional taxes. They're paying more taxes to the library district than the amount of taxes it would have required to fund the town's $100,000 library budget. When we're waiving these fees, giving them the land, these costs that add up somewhere like $1.3 million perhaps, that is double dipping the taxpayers of Lyons. There may be some savings to the town from the town as a governmental entity to its annual budget. And we will get some use clearly out of the community meeting room in the new facility. But let's not kid ourselves. We've transferred financial obligations to the taxpayers of Lyons and the district that they agreed to do. And now we're coming back and double dipping them for these additional amounts that were not part of the deal at the time they voted. Had all this been in the record at the time they voted, I'm not sure that as many would have voted the same way that they did vote. So I think the town has done a tremendous amount for the new library. At least in my calculation, something like $1.3 million of support, which would make the town by far the biggest supporter of the new library building. I don't think we need to do any more, and I think I prefer the recommendation that the staff made, that first $10,000 of the cost for moving the warning siren be paid by the library district.
Any other comments? So hearing none, I guess my comments are, I think the town should be the biggest supporter of the new library. We have no space for teenagers to hang out indoors. We don't have a space that's conducive for seniors to meet and congregate other than a private building that's owned by residents or that's owned by the county, and very difficult for them to use. I think this is going to be a transformational project for our town. I think it's going to improve that lot substantially. I'm a business owner in Lyons, and I can tell you that lot's not worth $1 million. I wish it was worth $1 million because I think that's a really big exaggeration and speculative on your part, Trustee Browning. We don't have any numbers to support that.
I do.
I'm sorry. I would appreciate not being interrupted. I don't interrupt you when you're speaking. So I feel like that, I think the library's done a phenomenal job of raising funds for this. But I also have been to several of their fundraisers, and I know they wanted this to be a special building and a special place for Lyons, and I know it will be. But I also think it needs to be a quality project. And, my concern in asking the board if they were open to helping the library close their funding gap was to ensure that we do get a quality project for the town. I think it's going to do a lot to close off or to kind of make a bigger area for our downtown that's walkable, and I'm thrilled with the location of it. I think it's going to be a spectacular building. So we have a motion on the floor to leave the IGA as it stands. I'm going to vote no, just because I don't think that this is worth it. I think it actually, I mean, $1,000 over what we've already contributed is not a meaningful additional contribution, so I don't think it's worth the changes. That's my understanding, is if you're net on this, with them paying the full amount for the siren, the way the motion is on the floor, is $1,000 to the library. It's my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong.
I think it would be $4,000 a library if the costs were not split. If the costs were split, it would be $1,000 to the library's benefit.
Yeah.
Say that one more time, because
So
that didn't make any sense.
The motion as included in the packet did not include the splitting of costs
Right.
for the siren.
So
Then it would cost the library, if you net it all out,
So adding
$4,000.
$4,000 cost to the
correct.
library, the motion on the floor,
Correct.
versus relieving them of any cost.
Correct.
But net compared to the last IGA.
Correct.
So that, with that understanding, I'm voting no. So are there any final comments?
The motion on the floor is to approve the staff recommendation. Is that what the motion is?
It's to approve the IGA as it stands, which adds
$4,000
$4,000 more
to the
cost
library.
to the library.
As I understood the staff recommendation, it was that the library district pay the 10,000 but be
That's
relieved
not
of
the
the
motion.
6,000. Okay, I don't understand the
The
motion.
motion is to approve the IGA as it stands. So I'm going to call the vote on this current motion. Has everybody voted? And the motion fails. Are there any further motions before we move on?
Is it 5-2?
5-2, or 2-5, sorry, motion failed. I would like to move that we amend the motion, or amend the IGA to remove half of the cost of the siren, so that at least there's some net gain to the library, and approve it otherwise.
I will second that motion.
Any further discussion? I'll call the vote. So it passes 4-3. Right, thank you. I'm going to ask for a short recess before we begin the next item.
I move for a short recess.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Call for the vote. Okay, we'll be back again in a few minutes. Thank you. We will get started again. So the next item on the agenda is the Riverbend appeal hearing, I guess Lyons Properties, sorry. Would you like to go ahead?
Before we begin, I will be recusing myself from this hearing as my husband is a partner in Lyons Properties LLC.
I will always also be recusing myself as I am employed by both Riverbend and Farmet. Thank you.
Should we close the meeting? Okay, I think the town attorney has some instructions.
Yeah, so before we begin, I want to remind everyone as to the instructions of the proceeding at this point. So as indicated by both the agenda and the ending of the last meeting, the public hearing portion of the meeting has now been closed, which means that no new information can be entered into the record. No testimony will be taken from staff, no testimony will be taken from the appellant, no testimony will be taken from the public. What can be asked by the board at this point is clarifying questions as the information already in the record, but no new information can come to light. Other than that, it's discussions for the board. I'm going to motion to either uphold the decision of the town administrator or to reverse the decision of the town administrator. With that, you're happy to begin your deliberations.
So clarifying, you want us to put a motion on the floor before we begin, or in this case, are we allowed to deliberate first?
I would prefer you put a motion on the floor.
Okay. Would someone like to put a motion on the floor?
I move that we uphold the position of the town staff on most items in discussion. I move that we, in general, uphold the position of the town staff, but whatever changes might be made after discussion.
I'll second.
Because it's if you just move. Let me simplify the motion, and then we can change it for amendments if we need to. My motion is that we uphold the position of the town staff.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Anyone would like to start a discussion?
Mark.
Trustee Brown?
Yes. I will hand to the other members of the board and to the town clerk. I'm going to ask that she distribute it.
Is this new information?
No, this is my discussion.
Okay.
I
Sorry.
put my discussion in.
I just wanna make sure we
I put
weren't
my
doing
discussion in
it.
written form so that I didn't leave
Who else are
anything
you
out.
wanting to have these?
Yes.
Who else? Besides staff?
Anyway.
Made a couple of extra copies. I think.
And just for clarification, you're introducing your statement into the written.
This is my statement, same as if I made it orally. I just don't want to leave anything out. And in fact, I would say my position on this is set out in great detail in this written statement of position. To the extent that I conflict with anything I might say orally, it's the written statement that I'm relying on. And I will summarize what's in the written statement as quickly as I can. This appeal, I think it's first important to focus on what it does not include, because there were some other items that were referred to in the record that are not actually before us for decision tonight. This is not, there's not a decision before us on whether Lyons Properties is in compliance with the memorandum of agreement with respect to putting up, dedicating a water share to the town. It's not before us whether Lyons Properties has operated a business in Lyons without a business license. It's not before us whether the Board of Trustees can or should impose late fees for unpaid utility bills as provided in a section of the town code. Nor is it before us whether Lyons Properties should have been billed additional base fees for taps between the time of the flood and the time when Lee Casa operations began. While the staff provided evidence on that, it wasn't billed and therefore hasn't been appealed, and I don't believe that it's in front of us tonight. The main issue in this appeal is the biggest dollar issue certainly is the number of wastewater taps from 501 Main property. The factual record reflects that Lyons Properties knew of the town engineer's determination that 9 taps were appropriate, 9 wastewater taps were appropriate for the 501 Main property in August 15th. If that date was a little bit equivocal based on their statements, it's clear that it was known prior to them entering into the memorandum of understanding, memorandum of agreement, excuse me. The memorandum of agreement was approved by a resolution of the town board at its January 4th, 2016 meeting. The key provision of that memorandum of agreement is in paragraph 43, which says as to wastewater taps, that there'll be one water tap, one sewer tap, or additional sewer taps as determined by the town engineer. As of that time, he had already determined that the 4-to-1 ratio was appropriate. There is a reference to appropriate uses for current planned uses, but the town engineer determined what was appropriate for those planned uses, and he determined 4-to-1 for tiny homes to wastewater taps. So the question kind of is presented of why would Lyons Properties sign that agreement if they disagreed with that? Well, that agreement is full of concessions on both sides. Among other things, that agreement waives a water tap fee for Lyons Properties, $35,000. There's all kinds of mutual concessions, and so there was every incentive to sign that agreement, and they did so. Another issue raised is whether that formula was arbitrary. There are a number of provisions in the Lyons Code that assign less than full amounts for, in several respects, for less than a full single-family residential unit or a single commercial property. In 13.380, it sets 0.70 of the rate for single-family residential units on multi-residential water service. 13.480 sets a ratio of 0.75 for each additional unit beyond the first for multi-residential buildings. The evidence presented by town staff was that they have also assigned a 0.25 ratio for each RV spot in the park. So while one can argue that 0.25 per tiny home is maybe not as correct as it should be, I don't believe that it's arbitrary. There's also a matter of inconsistency in Lyons Properties' position. In the public record of the town for a May 9th, 2016 Special Board of Trustees meeting is a statement in support of its PUD approval submitted by Lyons Properties that suggests that five separate new sanitary service connections are appropriate for its property. 1 to 503 Main, 1 to 517 Main, 3 to 501 West Main. It's Lyons Properties' position now in its appeal that one sanitary service connection is appropriate for all of 501 Main. That's inconsistent with their prior position. 3 separate wastewater connections were appropriate for 501 Main. Another allegation is that Lyons Properties wants to be treated just like any other commercial property in town. Let's think about that a minute. Lyons Properties was granted at its request its own unique PUD approval. Lyons began its tiny home and wedding operations under a temporary, specifically requested temporary operating permit that applied to no other business in town. Lyons Properties negotiated and signed a 7-page single-space memorandum of agreement on a wide variety of issues relating to its property. Other commercial properties in town haven't done that. Further, Lyons Properties deliberately chose not to pay the undisputed portions of its utility bills for a lengthy period of time. It was stated in the record that they did this in order to force a meeting with the town staff. A meeting did take place on January 24th, 2017, but Lyons Properties did not get the result it wanted from that meeting. Instead, it waited another 18 months until July 2018 to make what it termed a good faith $5,000 payment. Such an approach is hardly consistent with what other commercial properties in town do with their utility bills. As to being also, its argument is they should be treated in accordance with the town code. Well, the town code requires a $35,000 connection or tap fee for a 1-inch water tap. Lyons Properties didn't pay one. Why not? Because they asked for an exception to the town's code in the MOA and they got it. So when it comes to getting an exception to water taps, they don't want to be treated like other business, they want special treatment. But now they say they want to be treated under the town code and like other properties for purposes of this appeal. I'll briefly touch on the other issues on the appeal. The duplicate electric base fees, which is listed as issue number 2 in their timeline, It seems to have been conceded by town staff that there were not 5 electric taps at the 501 West Main Pump House, but only 4. Based on that, that adjustment should be made. With respect to billing per meter as opposed to per tap, that position of the town staff, that per meter billing is done for other businesses and residences in town is reflected in the town code because it says per service connection. It doesn't say per tap. So I believe the town staff's position that they should be billed per meter is correct. With respect to the mathematical errors that are covered by several issues, I don't believe we were presented with enough evidence. We didn't get the evidence in particular of the bills that showed discrepancies from month to month. I don't believe we have the information to decide on that. At least I don't think I understood that. Didn't see enough in the record to decide on that. It's my understanding, the record reflects that town staff met on August the 8th of this year with Lyons Properties and made some adjustments for double buildings, which I believe covered probably some of those math errors. Our ruling on things that were actually in dispute here does not preclude town staff from making additional corrections to the extent that they have found that there were duplicate billings and math errors. So we're not precluding that from happening. I just don't see that we have enough evidence to make those math calculations ourselves. Finally, the last item was issue 5, billing for services not provided security lights. Lyons Properties testified there is no security light on the property. The staff testified they didn't know. Given that if evidentiary record, I've got to conclude that there was no security light and the charges on the bills for that service should be credited to Lyons Properties. And for the rest of the matters, I refer to my written position statement.
Other comments? Just so you know, I mean, I think providing a written record is nice, but there's no opportunity to really read that material in a hearing such as this. So I think I'm not sure I captured everything that you're stating as your position, so I may have some questions for you.
Okay.
But anyone else want to share their comments or have any questions that they need to ask?
Okay, so
Trustee Furman?
Question about question. I went through all of this again, and I came up with more questions, but it sounds like I can't ask questions, or?
You can ask clarifying questions for information that is already in the record. If it brings new information into the record, it cannot be asked at this point because the public hearing has been closed. And if you'd like an advisory opinion on the question, I can offer that as well.
Okay. I think that's kind of a shame though, because we were given so much volume of information to try to get all of it in your head. And then when I get to really break it apart, I can't really get down to the nitty-gritty. So anyway, well, I did need a few minutes to determine if my question is a good question.
Ask it.
Is it about information that was provided at the last meeting? Or is
It is,
looking
but
for new information?
Well, some of it needed to be new information, and based on the answer, it was going to help me come to my final conclusion. So,
Is there a way you could ask the question that reestablishes information that's in the record? Maybe it's not the exact question you were offering, but it will get to the same place without introducing new stuff in.
all right, well, let me just ask. I wanted to know, is there a certain capacity of usage and waste a single tap can handle?
And I don't have the answer.
I was wondering if Joe could answer the question.
Was that information that you presented during your testimony? No. Okay, we can
The
ask
only
the
way you could
question.
ask it was, is there a certain volume associated with the tap?
I believe we did talk about the volumes of the taps, right?
For water?
For water.
For water. So for water, what is the volume of the tap?
I code it's a little under an acre foot of water per 3/4 inch equivalent.
Okay. Then I don't think my next question would be able to be answered.
Unfortunately, some of the difficulty of running a court proceeding is that questions come up even after testimony's been entered.
Do you want to think about it a little bit more?
Yes, please,
Okay.
go ahead.
Mayor Pro Tem.
in looking at this, I find myself kind of compelled to look at two things. One is policy, and the other is reconciliation. From a policy perspective, I think we need to apply policy consistent with the other applications of policy, for example, related to tap fees. I think it would be, and this was brought up, I think it would be inappropriate to not charge fees after the extended discussions that we had over time when we did apply tap fees to people who were out of their homes for a considerable amount of time. In terms of reconciliation, and this referring to back to the earlier discussion from Trustee Browning, is that I believe it would take some sitting down and continuing the discussions as to errors and adjustments and double billing and that sort of thing, which I believe the town would be amenable to in terms of just come to reasonable agreements, particularly where there's a clear error. So in general terms, I do agree with Trustee Browning's position on the discussion.
Thanks. I had one clarifying question about the electric base fees. And I don't know if this was something you provided last time, but I know that at one point there was discussion about, and you went out and looked at the property. Was there a formal request by the applicant to change the number of base fees they were being billed for?
For the electric base, no.
So
That
the questions
came to light
came
when we were going through the bills.
They came up when, but they never said, we want you to eliminate these meters.
No.
Okay.
And all those meters are active and serve a purpose on the.
So they are being used?
They are being used.
Okay, I wasn't clear on whether they were,
I think
they had
on
actually
the-
asked you to
on
come
the
out and
pump
review
house,
those? Okay.
There was one that I found that was not tied to a meter, that one would need to be credited back.
Okay.
And all that testimony was discussed during
Yeah.
the public hearing.
So, I have to say, I agree that I think to overturn a staff decision takes a really high threshold of evidence that there was some error that was made, or, and I really couldn't find that in this case. I think that per the testimony, they were aware of what the definition of taps per number of tiny homes was going to be before they signed the agreement. So I felt like they had remedies at the time by not signing, if they felt that that estimation wasn't going to be in their favor, wasn't necessary. I think that we made concessions actually that we didn't make for anyone else in terms of having to pay those base fees. And I actually am not happy about that. So I think in a way they've gotten a little bit more than what some other residents got. And I'm not going to say that we should do anything about that at this point. I think we need to try to move forward, but I didn't see any reason to overturn this decision. I think that, the justification for the taps, I thought from the staff, was satisfactory in terms of equivalent to not only the RV park, which is a very comparable way to determine that, but also just the number of kitchens and the number of bathrooms that are involved in the business there. So the only question for me was maybe some consideration of the electric base fees, if that had been something they had requested and we just hadn't, didn't know if we were billing those correctly. And I don't disagree that there might need to be some adjustments based on errors and things, but as far as the MOU, I think it's pretty clear what the town was to do to follow through with determining the number of taps. So I would support the motion as it is on the floor. Is there any further discussion? Trustee Brown?
Well, yes, I think it sounds like we might all be kind of leaning towards the same direction. I wanted to consider some kind of a compromise, but really what it came down to was that for basically 2 years from the time of the flood to September 2015, you didn't get, Lyons Property didn't get charged for services that people who were not in their homes were being charged for and did pay for. You know, I think that makes, that was an accounting error on our part. So I definitely think that there are, both sides have made some mistakes. But I believe that starting in September 2015 forward, that, you know, the correct base fee is 9 taps, a 4-to-1 ratio for tiny homes, and utilities should be charged late fees, the $10 late fees. I would actually be curious, though, if we should be more specific, since being specific seems to be a necessity. Is it possible that the UEB could work with Mr. Waugh and Ms. Vasquez to go over the accounting accuracies, but we set up to a certain deadline, perhaps by that needing to be double checked and whatever, but presenting it to the board, perhaps the December 17th meeting?
Trustee Farrell, are you proposing an amendment to the motion that's on the floor?
I'm opening a discussion more about.
Well, I think there needs to be an amendment before discussion.
Okay. Well, would we need to pass this first and then I could add that on?
No, amendment goes first.
Amendment goes first. Sure. So, all right, I've never done this before, I don't think so.
So I move to amend the motion.
I move to amend the motion to consider establishing a time frame and a deadline for accounting accuracy, so that Lyons Properties and the town of Lyons could go through and make sure that all of their numbers are satisfactory, and that we've double checked it with the UEB or someone in our accounting department, with a deadline of December 17th.
So I have one question. Would you consider it, or I think you, since it's an amendment, it must be required to require that the parties enter.
Then I require that the parties enter into this agreement.
So I just want to clarify, so the amendment is that we establish a specific set time frame for when the utility bills need to be reconciled. And are we leaving it up to staff to determine who the best person to help them with that consideration, whether it's the UV or accounting?
I'm fine with that too.
That's the intent. Okay. Is there a second for the amendment?
I'll second that.
Okay. I would like to hear from staff on, so if it is to set a time frame, but a specific time was not offered.
We've already met with
You
the
have.
applicant and we're all in agreement with the amount. It's already done.
Okay, so you're not concerned about a time frame, you said? Okay, that was just my question. All right, I'll call for a vote on the motion.
One
Trustee
discussion. This would leave up to staff to determine whether they wanted to continue reconciliation or refer it to the UAB, because I don't think that this is what the UAB is supposed to do. If it's up to staff to determine whether they should do it,
okay,
with UAB, then I'm okay with it.
That's what, yep.
So as a question from Trustee Bryan and Trustee Farrell, was the purpose of your amendment for staff to determine the proper form?
Yes, I'm open for the staff to make the recommendation if they didn't have the time to do it, if would it be appropriate for the UEB to do it or not.
And one other clarifying question. Once that's done, it can be done by staff. It doesn't have to come back to the board.
That would be fine with me too.
And actually, I think, my understanding of the motion was that we're setting a time frame and that there's a verification process.
Right.
We're not setting a reconciliation amount, we're not setting the time frame, and we're saying that we just get it done expeditiously, essentially.
I just don't want
the
this to keep
point.
going, and that we all have, this is going on.
In my understanding of the administration of this amendment would be that the underlying interpretation of the MOU would be the same, it's just these clerical.
It's just the clerical math errors that are corrected.
Thank you.
And utility late fees?
Well, I mean, okay, so I didn't add that to my
No, you
motion.
didn't. But she mentioned it earlier.
The late
But
fees
that's
had
already-
already been assessed, and those are part of the
Right,
payment plan
okay.
that was signed by Mr. Wong.
Okay.
That, when they signed that, that cleared up the entire past due balance.
So maybe it's not necessary.
So you're withdrawing your,
Doesn't it sound like it's perhaps not even necessary? If that's already come to, then I'll withdraw the motion.
Is that okay with the second?
that's fine.
Okay. All right, the motion to withdraw for the amendment. Are there any final comments on the overall motion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All right, it's approved 5-0. Thank you, everyone. All right, we have a couple more of us. You want to call the others? Yeah. Thank you.
That's the record.
Come back with $2,000.
That's okay.
I thought the horse was
Okay, our next item on the agenda is a discussion and direction to staff regarding a position on, potential position on Proposition 110. So there was some information in the packet, and there's lots of information online. This is the transportation initiative that would institute a 0.62% property tax for 20 years to establish funding for a broad number of transportation initiatives. I don't know if staff had anything else you wanted to add, other than, I don't believe there's a position from CNL on this one, because they're going to leave it up to the local communities to decide. But there have been endorsements from many of the Chamber of Commerce in Boulder, Denver, and Metro mayors, and Dr. Collins have both taken a position of support. So I thought we do have the opportunity as a board on a ballot initiative to pass a resolution taking a position on a ballot initiative if we feel it has a substantial interest for the town, or impact on the town. So I thought we'd bring this one up and the one following and see what the board's thoughts are on taking a position. And if anybody's got any comments or wanted to start things off.
I have a question. I'm curious then if, what would be our substantial benefits by having this that's specific to our town?
So generally, basically, they will allocate a percentage of the funding to each local county and community. And we get an allocation now on the gas tax through what they call HTU. And it would probably, I've run the math, it's probably going to be another $75,000 a year in funding that we can use toward any transportation project within the town limits that we want. The other, I guess to give you the background, this is something that Dr. Cog has been working on, and the Metro mayors probably for the last 6 years, is trying to figure out how to fund transportation. Raising the gas tax, essentially, everyone said, why don't you just raise the tax? One, it wouldn't work because it wouldn't generate anywhere near enough revenue for all of the transportation improvement projects that they need statewide. So this is really one way to raise the necessary funds and also fix our problems statewide. Because I mean, the analogy is, yes, so the bigger communities are the ones that are maybe more challenged with this, but mostly, I think most of them are in support of it. It's pretty bipartisan because you don't just drive in Lyons, you drive to Denver, you drive to Boulder, and the money will go across the state. And there's also a lot of this money is for multimodal projects like trails and to get people out of their cars. There is some money that would go toward rail that would impact Longmont. Hopefully to get their rail line finally funded. And I think that the argument for it, for any community, is to say, you know what, we all share a responsibility in maintaining our transportation throughout the state. And so even though Denver could pass a 0.62 sales tax and raise a heck of a lot more money than they will get from the allocation from this. So it's taking the money and spreading it across the state. The downside is obviously it increases your sales tax dollars, and it does probably limit your ability to get a future sales tax increase passed, potentially. I'll tell you, my opinion on this is that we should be in favor of it. I think we benefit a lot through relationships with the county and with CDOT running through our town. We want CDOT to get a lot of this funding so they can actually do the improvements we're going to need to get traffic moving through our town more efficiently. I mean, I think we've seen some really exciting plans for things like roundabouts and things that really improve not just the traffic, but also the pedestrian feel. I don't think we lose a lot being a small community. It's a wash for us, pretty much. If we pass that tax, we may or may not raise, you know, if we raise that amount, there's no guarantee we go toward transportation. This kind of is a way of saying we're passing a tax and we're going to put that money into fixing our roads, improving our sidewalks, making our town more walkable, putting in trails. So, you know, I don't think a town our size has a lot to lose. And I think the sales tax, the downside, for us, I don't see us needing to raise our sales tax anytime soon, because I think we're going to see growth through the Eastern Corridor development. And I also think that, there were two reasons, now forget my other one. I think we're going to see the sales tax grow that way, and just the growth along the Front Range. Our sales tax has been climbing very steadily for many, many years, and the numbers are up again in Rocky Mountain National Park. Not to say that all couldn't change at some point, but you know, we did a sales tax increase fairly recently, which is good. There are some communities that have been planning one for this ballot, and so it's a little tougher on the timing for them. But so I think for us, I think I think we do need to contribute to fixing our transportation problems statewide. I think we have a lot of work, and we have not made the investments that we need to make. And I do believe that they have exhausted every possible option to come up with this funding some other way. There is a competing ballot measure, so I do think it's important to mention that. And it's being issued by John Caldera. The difference there is it would go out to bonding. There's no guarantee of the projects, and there's no multimodal funding. And so it's a very different measure. It's kind of the traditional route. You bond, and it would raise about half the funds. So, and that initiative doesn't have support.
It is supported more of the private business, over 120 CEOs in the state of Colorado, so it's supported more by private business.
Yeah.
We're usually more fiscally responsible than we, the governments, are.
Potential.
So. And none of the money can be funneled off to any other agency. It has to go straight to roads. It cannot be funneled off as part of the proposition to any part of any other part of state government anywhere. So it cannot be siphoned off or anything and used like governments tend to do. Rob one fund to pay another fund from one year to the next, like Social Security and Medicare. So it's pretty strict on what the money can be used for only.
Okay.
Brief discussion. I reluctantly support this. I say reluctantly for two reasons. Sales taxes are regressive taxes. Everybody pays sales tax on common things. The more fair way to do it would be to increase the transportation tax, but I mean the gasoline tax, that's the root of the problem. The gasoline tax hasn't been increased since 1993. And if you increase the gasoline tax, the people who drive the big vehicles that get fewer miles per gallon pay more than the people who either use public transportation or drive more efficient cars. However, the information that was presented to us was that careful polling had been done, and they simply could not pass a big enough increase in the gasoline tax for it to get voter approval. And backing up even further, this is a Tabor problem. Years and years ago, the legislature could have just raised the gasoline tax. It can't do it anymore because of Tabor. For all kinds of political reasons, they can't get Tabor fixed, so now they have to go to the voters. And if the polling shows that the voters won't approve a substantial increase in the gasoline tax, this is the fallback position. So I don't like supporting progressive sales taxes, but I understand why it was proposed here. And the second thing is what the mayor mentioned, that there is an alternative proposal that's a worse idea. And I think the more municipalities and other institutions that support this proposition, the less likely the other one is to pass, and it's a bad idea. So I reluctantly support this.
I would agree with Trustee Browning. I also reluctantly support it for a lot of the same reasons. I'm not a big proponent of raising sales tax, but I agree with Mayor Sullivan that I don't think it's going to have a huge impact on Lyons per se. I just don't agree with using sales tax for this. I grew up on the East Coast where they just put tolls on all the roads, and that's how they pay for all their projects. So I would have much rather seen that kind of a proposal. But I do like the backbone of the initiative, and I think there's some environmental advantages to it as well. So I would give our support.
Yeah, I agree with the comments from both trustees. And if my wife's watching and sees me support a tax increase, but I do, and I think actually she would also agree, because in driving around the state, it's abundantly clear that something has to be done, and the financing of it, is kind of a situation, if you will, and it seems that this is a way of financing the fact that we absolutely need something to be done with the transportation situation in the state. I also like the potential application of the multimodal opportunities, which I think Lyons could benefit from either directly or indirectly, but in a close way. So I support it.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I don't have anything further to add, but I am in support of it.
Okay, so it sounds like we have direction from the majority of board members to bring a resolution in support of Proposition 110.
No.
No, just direction.
Yeah, we'll vote on it next time.
Okay. The next one is Amendment 74. And if you took the time to read the CML memo, it should be very clear why we should potentially direct staff to bring us a resolution in opposition to, and I don't know if we can make it strong opposition to Amendment 74, but this is an initiative that is being sponsored by oil and gas from out of state, and the purpose of it is basically to try to compensate property owners if the government makes any decision that could potentially lower their property value in any way, shape, or form. And it is very vague in terms of, there are no limits basically to the way the amendment is written. So I think the memo from CNL somewhat speaks for itself, so I don't know if anybody had any questions or comments on this one.
I'd like to make a few comments. This would dramatically change historical takings law in the state of Colorado. Historically, when a government has to pay somebody for taking their property, that means the government has interfered with the use of their property to such an extent that there's really no viable economic use for that property anymore. They've ruined the total value of the property. That's not what this amendment says. This amendment says if you do something that changes, reduces the value of the property 25%, the government has to pay for it. That's not the way the law has ever worked. And the only U.S. Supreme Court case I ever worked on was a takings case, so I know a little bit about takings law. For the record, our client lost that case 8-0. So I know how Nixon felt. But in doing that, I learned some things about takings law, and this would just dramatically rewrite historical takings law. Takings law is a terrible idea, and we should oppose it and urge people to vote against it.
Any other comments?
I just don't want to see any more attorney commercials on the TV.
Does anybody feel differently on this one? Okay, so direction to staff to prepare a resolution in opposition to Amendment 74. All right, we had 2 items removed from consent. Thank you to the board for considering those. First one is Resolution 28. 2018-80, so I'll turn it over to Mayor Burton.
Yes, and this relates to the compliance officer section, paragraph in the proposed things. And it was just that the compliance officer paragraph indicates that the human resource assistant, and if the complaints about the human resource, then the town administrator, I just think that we should add a sentence at the end of that that says the town administrator may designate a staff member as temporary compliance officer. Just in the cases, the possibilities of human resource officer vacancy or illness or, on and on. It's just a, cosmetic thing almost.
Okay.
And then at the, I think about a page and a half later where it says, defines compliance officer a bit, and it says the town's compliance, and I'm recommending that it say the town's compliance officer shall be the human resource assistant, comma, the town administrator, comma, a staff member temporarily designated by the town administrator or a third party designated by either the town administrator or the board of trustees. I'm saying that because previously it said, determined by the town, and that would seem to be a little ambiguous.
You use third party or outside party?
Well, it originally said third party.
Okay, maybe we can change it, okay.
Which I think, okay. And then, and this would be subject to discussion, I think. And this relates to releasing documents to the public, and so that it would say requires supervisory and legal approval before submitting or releasing documents to the public with potentially sensitive information. That's where, people in kind of direction to the town. Yeah, because I just think in our situation, if we're going to be releasing sensitive information, that it ought to be looked at by legal prior to release. That makes sense? I guess the way it would work is first the supervisor would say, yeah, I think we could go ahead and do that. Let's talk to legal, and then,
Sure.
move from there. So it's grant management on this now. This is just a cosmetic item on the non-discrimination, page 15, under grant management. It's just the, I think the references belong at the end of that. There's some CFR references that are at the beginning of the paragraph, they belong at the end. Just cosmetic. That's all. So I propose those as amendments to,
Do you want to make a motion and just?
that's what I can't remember the number of the.
82. 81.
80.
Another purpose is 81.
Okay, I move for passage of 2018-80 with the amendments that I just stated.
Is there a second?
I'll second your motion.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, call for the vote. And it's approved 7-0. Thank you. All right, next one is yours.
And this relates to the fire code. I think there was, we should add a whereas clause because, or I move that we add a whereas clause that states, whereas the Board of Trustees wishes to encourage builders of family and dual family residential units to consider all options for fire prevention and fire mitigation techniques, and then that would be immediately before the whereas clause that says we wish to exempt single family.
So is the motion to approve with that?
Yes, the motion is to approve with that.
Can you repeat it one more time?
Yes. And I'll give the reason after making the motion. I move to add a whereas clause stating, whereas the Board of Trustees wishes to encourage builders of family and dual family residential units to consider all options for fire prevention and fire mitigation techniques. And just briefly, my rationale for that is that we had talked about the fact that we do want people to consider those options, including sprinklers if they can afford it, and just to reinforce that.
I can't make an amendment, but would you consider multifamily versus dual? Because then it only counts for 2 families.
That was just because the rest of the.
The only accepted single and dual.
Just
Got it.
So it's only applicable to.
Okay, got it, thank you.
Is there a second for the motion?
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
One at a time.
Who wants to be the second?
Passes.
Raise your hand.
I'll do it.
Okay. Trustee Carroll.
Passes 7-0.
Hey, I can second, I just can't make motions.
All right, we are on to trustee reports. Do you want to start? Trustee Farrell?
I would like to thank you very much for appointing Lauren Cliff to the Lyons Arts and Humanities Commission. That's really good news, thank you. That was all.
Trustee Davis?
College board meeting tomorrow has been canceled. Not enough people for a quorum. Also from that board, Jerry Jacka resigned. So there'll be an opening. It's like to thank Jerry Jacka. Thank you for his input. He did a lot of work, a lot of input he put forth was very meaningful to the board and helped them. September 19th will be a UEB meeting. Agenda's online, and the UEB has stated their concerns of staff, have request waiving tap fees. I think I brought something before, but they brought it up again, that it does cut into capital improvement monies. So for us as a board, you will. And town staff, thank you, and mayor for a great face you put on for our town last Monday when the governor was here, the news. Thank you. Good job, everybody.
The Tourism Marketing Grant Committee met. And they would like to get on the agenda, perhaps under boards and commissions, might be the appropriate place, just to talk about funding, further talk about funding for marketing and kind of build on what Kim Mitchell was presenting. They just want to, I'm losing it a little bit this evening. Do you have any more substance to add to that?
That's right on. I mean, it's building on Kim's presentation to our workshop and adding some real dollars and specific programs.
Right, okay, sorry, I pulled up the wrong set of notes, and so I'm not looking at the right document.
October 1st is available, I believe, currently, on the review today for boards and commissions, so if they want that slot, you can tell them.
Were we aiming for October 15th, though?
It's the second.
Or?
It is the second meeting, October 15th. The
I think that's what we were talking about. Yeah,
okay.
I think they would
All
prefer
right, I'll make a note of it.
Yeah, if the 15th is available. If not, they'll go on.
We also have a request from Planet Bluegrass discussion that night as well. So maybe we can split it.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Okay.
Okay. And then Kim and Tiffany and Brandon and I met earlier today about revolving loan funds. So we're making some progress there. I think Brandon's going to bring us a resolution to the October 1st meeting. And I am going to work with Kim to just kind of set up an informational meeting and, really get these people on board and make sure they still want to be on board after we pass along some information to them. So that's what we're working on. That's all I have.
Great. Mr. Jones?
The SFC met on September 13th. Most of what they discussed, you heard in their presentation tonight. That's most of the time. There's one other item that they wanted me to convey to them. They're waiting to get a draft of RFI on the single hauler ordinance.
It'll be done Friday. Unexpected things. It was supposed to be done last Thursday. It'll be done this Friday.
That's the other thing on their plate that they're waiting to look at. So.
I don't really have anything to report on the Human Services and Aging Commission. However, I do have a question about the trash cans on Main Street. And I saw a photo this morning of the bear that had gotten in a trash bag that was sitting on the ground next to a wastebasket on Main Street, and I'm trying to figure out where that trash bag came from and why it was sitting next to the trash can. Why it wasn't in a dumpster, why it was, I'm not understanding where that came from. And so I was just kind of wondering if we could maybe put on our radar some bear-proof trash cans in the budget, perhaps, or some ordinance on the agenda regarding bear-proof trash cans, because we've got a lot of bears and other wild animals that are getting into trash, and I would hate to see that. I hate to see them destroyed because of that. And also, if we are trying to pass an ordinance of yard waste being the responsibility of and the right-of-way of the property owners or whoever lives there, that we could perhaps make it on the property, the commercial property right-of-way, town right-of-way, if there's a trash can or something like that that is full, and there's a commercial building or a business that has a dumpster, then they see a trash bag sitting there, that they could dump it in their dumpster, something like that. See, I think that's reasonable. So that's just all I have.
So can we take the bear proof at budget time?
Sure.
The trash can?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to bring it up.
Okay.
Where are we?
Okay. Thanks.
First, I'd like to build on Trustee Curtis's congratulations and thanks to town staff for the remarkable celebrations and very well managed community events, and also to the mayor for I thought was a remarkable appearance on 9 News that put a really good face on the town. I think all those events together with the news coverage has been very good for the town, and so that's under the good news heading. The PCDC met along with the Parks and Recreation Commission, and I thought that was a very good meeting. There was a lot of good discussion, and I think a framework for making a recommendation to the board emerged from that, and I believe town planner will be bringing that forward not too distant future, to designate the specific properties in the Apple Valley area that the Boulder County is asking us to consider. It would be in a category of these are no, we don't want them. These are ones we do want for these reasons, and these are ones that we want if and only if certain conditions exist. I think that's all.
Okay. So I was out of town a bit for the last couple of weeks, so I did go to the first half of the Parks and Rec meeting. Where they really just heard some updates from town staff, and then I did not stay for the second half of that because it was more of a PCDC meeting. And then I'm back to COG Wednesday and Metro Mayor's next week, so a light couple weeks. So other than the circuit of media, that was kind of fun. A little unnerving at times, but thank you for the comments. It was nice work. So other than that, if there's anything else from staff, do you have a summary of action items before we move to go into executive session?
So we're going to look at their approved candidate budget, a resolution on the October 1st meeting for the USDA grant.
USDA grant?
Revolving Loan Fund Committee.
Oh, okay. Sorry, thank you.
Sorry, I said that wrong.
I have also have resolution supporting the transportation funding ballot initiative and a resolution opposing the, I'll call it the takings ballot initiative, so.
Make changes to the resolutions for to content 480 and 70, make those changes. Change the library IG to remove the siren costs.
Half the siren cost.
Yeah,
Half.
it was half.
$5,000.
Yeah.
Okay. Change our budget presentations to with quarterly updates only to presented following the full quarter. And then from social media policy.
Social media policy and legislative policy.
Mhm.
It's maybe a longer term item, but.
Towards a marketing grant on the boards and commissions.
October 15th.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I forgot one thing. Are you done?
Yeah.
Done? I just want to wish you both happy birthday.
You and yours.
I'll see you.
We all have birthdays.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Victoria County. Happy birthday to you.
All right, on to back to business.
I missed 5 birthdays.
Okay, is there a motion to go into executive session?
I move to go into executive session. Executive session pursuant to CRS sections 24.6, 402, 4A, 24.6, 402, and 24.6, 402, for the purpose of discussing the possible purchase, acquisition, transfer, or sale of a real property interest, determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiations, developing strategy for negotiations, and instructing negotiators, with legal advice from attorneys representing the town regarding real property interests in the eastern corridor, 4651 Ute Highway, and within the town limits. I further move to reconvene the board meeting at the conclusion of the executive session for the purpose of taking any actions deemed necessary and to adjourn the September 17, 2018 regular Board of Trustees meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? No? Call for the votes. And